Hello folks, and welcome back to the workshop. Well, the dining room. What a long-suffering wife I seem to have. So, I've been busy applying the rib tape to the Fokker DR1, and this was the last swing that I had to complete. It's done. I'm really happy with how it turned out. That's a combination of masking tape, glue to simulate the stitching, and then some surgical tape over the top, micro pour. There you go. And it's worked out well. I really like it. But it then made me turn my attention to the Gipsy Moth that I'm busy with. And I thought, well, it's got to have some form of tape on it just to give that texture that I'm looking for. And in this case, I'm actually using pinking shears, and I'm cutting the tape from Solatex. Now, I'll put this wing down and then a word about what I'm doing. Well, about a week or so ago, I did mention that I'd used these pinking shears and that I'd given up on them because they'd stopped working, stopped cutting, and I was going to use them as a paperweight. That was a sort of kinder suggestion that I came up with. However, I looked at them and I thought, why they suddenly stopped cutting? And I decided to just give them a clean with some cellulose thinners, and I tried them again. And to my surprise, they cut perfectly. So I could only assume it was some gunk had got onto the actual teeth and that would affect the cut. Now, this Gipsy Moth isn't a quarter scale model. I think it's approximately a 6 scale. And these shears would cut you some tape at 1/4 inch scale spacing. The pinking shears apparently didn't really come into use until after the 1920s, and before that period, simply strips of linen were pulled off, producing a frayed edge, which then doped onto the fabric. So World War I planes wouldn't have generally had the pinking. I know that there is some thought that there were pinking machines available, but it doesn't seem to be the case that they were widely used, certainly on German aircraft at least. Anyway, I digress. On this model, you would have had, I believe, pinked tape on the ribs. And, it's not an exact scale model. It's about the impression. I don't think the rib spacing's exactly right, but I like the idea of once this wing is covered, painted, that we'll have the impression of where the tape is. And this is how I go about using them. So I'll zoom in a little bit so you can see a little bit more clearly, and then we'll apply a tape or two, and then we'll see what it looks like. Here's what I do. I've already cut some strips off here, so the last cut has left the dogtooth edge that I'm after, and I simply mark on the width that I'm looking for. I'm not actually measuring it, I'll be honest with you. And then it's about concentrating on getting the upper part of the shears doing the movement and keeping the lower part of the shears still. I was initially concerned about lining the teeth up, but in reality, if you miss a part, if you miss a one, I don't think it makes that much difference. There you go. There's one cut, ready to be applied. And I've got the iron on, so we'll put this last short one on. And this is over silk. The heat's not going to do it any real harm. It's not dwelling long enough. It's on silk, which is over tissue. And I finished covering this wing yesterday. quite pleased with the result. What you have to remember when you're working with cellulose dough is that, let's get this straight, when you're working with cellulose dough, that it continues to shrink beyond the initial application. So what you might think, oh, that's not as tight as I would like it, or there's a bubble here or a wrinkle there. Give it time, and it's not my greatest strength being able to do that, but give it time and it will settle down and go drum tight. And I think this is an extremely strong finish. The tissue underneath the silk gives it a structure, makes it easier to handle, I believe. And also the silk, I think, binds to the tissue that's underneath there. So there are some of the tapes on the shorter side done. I've got some longer lengths to cut. It's a little bit tedious. I must admit that on the DR1, I'll just show you, I've done the underside of the lower wing, but I haven't done the underside of the middle and top wing, simply because it's very difficult to see that underside, and at the moment I just don't think it's worth the effort. However, I do think it's worth the effort for the upper side of the wing. I'll just show you. There we go. I think that looks great. Once it's painted up, I've got a feeling that once I apply this sort of camouflage scheme to it, we mightn't even see the rib tape that much, but it is what it is. I know it's there. After a little distraction, that's the rib tape applied. The distraction took the form of certainly the cat deciding to pull out the servo cables. So I've had some real fun and games threading them back through. Never mind, job's done. Last thing for me to do now is I'm going to use some of the magical onion juice. Well, actually, it's non-shrinking dope or banana oil, and I'm going to seal over each section of tape, and then it'll be ready to spray up. So thanks for watching. I hope you found that useful. Quite a lot of tape's been put on over the last 2 or 3 days. I think it's time to move on to something else, otherwise I'm going to go stir crazy. And that's the good thing about this hobby. If something becomes monotonous and you've had enough of it, you can simply move on to the next task. So stick in, folks, get flying if you can. If you can't, let's get creative.